This video is a rant, nothing concrete here, so I want to take this video to simply express my thoughts on an IP that I think is simultaneously one of the greatest things that has ever happened in gaming and one of the biggest disappointments I've ever personally gone through in gaming. Destiny is Anakin, and we're all Obi-Wan. That young stargazer with dreams that stretched out into the sky, brimming with brilliant potential and exceptional talent, cut down by his own inhibitions, selfishness, and complete and total lack of self-control. Deprived of his own freedom and, in a way, leadership. Before he completely converted to an entirely different entity, the last image we collectively have of him is a charred, broken mess, seemingly abandoned and left to die, as we pray that this new chapter in their life will inevitably lead them to find wholeness again. Am I describing Destiny or Anthem? Let me save that one for the Anthem video. Destiny is a hot fucking mess, and every subsequent update and patch release we hope and pray is the one that fixes all the problems that made us collectively leave. Whether it be issues with the Crucible, issues with PvE, issues with both, issues with the storytelling, or some combination of complaints like I said. Destiny is an incredibly polarizing game. It's like if Lord of the Rings had 3 terrible movies instead of 3 brilliant ones. It creates this contrast when you read the lore, look at the concept art, listen to the original soundtrack. Look at the original story trailers, look at the original gameplay trailer, look at the time this game released, look at the initial gameplay loop, read the initial rumors, look at the initial developer. You were so utterly convinced that this game was destined for absolute greatness, only for what followed suit, at least for me, was one of the first colossal letdowns, arguably one of the biggest upsets of any generation of gamer ever. I cannot think of a game before Destiny 1 that was that misleading, that big of a misdirection, that utterly disappointing of a release. I wrote this video before Cyberpunk, so that line itself brings me the big sad. But even Cyberpunk is much more competent of a game when it works as intended compared to vanilla Destiny 1. The arguments being made at the time was that there was no feasible way Destiny could have lived up to the hype it set for itself through marketing and leaks. And while I agree that hype culture is definitely a big reason for why most AAA games with successful media campaigns fail, I also believe that the reasons behind why Destiny was so poorly received go beyond unfettered expectations, as the game showed a lot and made a lot of pretty big promises that simply were not followed up at all, down to an entire story, parts of the open world, weapons, a lot of things promised were nowhere to be found when it came time for the game to deliver. Destiny was the fucking chosen one. At launch in the first 5 days, Destiny made $325 million at retail. This game was the single biggest video game launch of all time, and it had every right to, honestly. Destiny on paper was such a beautifully crafted and exceptionally extraordinary title. As a collective, no one expected what the actual product was going to turn out to be. No one thought the game was so unfinished that Crucible would serve as Destiny's PvE endgame. No one thought the game's campaign would only be 20 hours long, including travel time between missions. No one thought the game's grind loop would be so monotonous people would invent controller clients that let them AFK farm in strikes. No one thought the wonderful and exciting crafting treats we saw in the E3 demo would turn into these boring trudges for rerolls and god rolls. For fuck's sake, in the original story trailer, the story that was in the story trailer no longer even fucking exists. There's an entire scene where our Guardian talks to Crow, whose character model is now used for Aldrin, that does not even fucking exist anymore. It's just gone. And as I sit here, betrayed by this IP, I remember why I still chose to play D1 despite it essentially being so utterly disappointing in so many ways. This is because the shooting mechanics felt absolutely brand new at the time, and the game, despite its severe flaws, had an impeccable amount of charm. And even beyond that, it has something that so many games nowadays don't: potential, authenticity, and nuance. The way I see it now, Destiny is simply another victim of the capitalist cabal. That is a corporate conglomerate that dictates gaming's ebb and flow by being the sole source of funding for a lot of AAA developers. While it would be far too arduous to articulate as of now, so many utter failures and complete mishaps occurred during the developmental phase of Destiny. Bungie's lead composer, Martin O'Donnell, the sound behind the original Halo games, was not the only veteran developer who left. But along with the lead writers, lead artists, lead story composers, basically everyone who functionally made the original game left before the game was even finished. Martin O'Donnell even took Bungie to court for using his creative genius, his phenomenal soundtrack in D1 without his permission and won. The creative differences between those who were most passionate about the IP and Activision ensued a wave of backlash so utterly catastrophic and detrimental that by the time we got to play Destiny 1, essentially everything about the game was sporadically and relative to its original timeline spontaneously changed. You're probably wondering, how severe could major figures leaving the dev team to a game butcher its developmental process? To my OG viewers, there's another game where this exact same thing happened. For Honor. Do I need to tell you the difference between E3 For Honor and what we got February 14th? If I can say, however, despite this game's failings, despite this game's shortcomings, and despite the studio's horrendous mismanagement of the IP, the fact it's still brimming with potential and depth unexplored tells me something. This game should just start over. There are elements of this game so wonderfully executed that I can easily see why people, including me, held on to and keep tabs on its development. Its art direction and ability to capture scale and size with its skyboxes and artistic direction is unmatched. There has never been a game I've played with visual world building as keen, epic, and wildly imaginative as Destiny's. With visual fidelity I still can't comprehend in terms of how they consistently execute such concepts thematically. Structures that feel impossibly big, cities that feel impossibly deep, a planet-eating ship swallowing the horizon of the sky, a paracausal entity looming over an entire city, the foreboding feeling of its geometrical antithesis on other planets, a bedrock of lore that rivals some of the greatest fictional verses ever created, a phenomenal mechanical system that's really only marred by experimental missteps. Trust me, when I step into Destiny, I feel like I'm stepping into Destiny. It's its own world, with its own history, with its own revolutionary genre. In terms of what's there, every reason to hate what is very valid. But what I also don't want to neglect is everything the game does right, and how a redo on this game's collective history is, in my opinion, exactly what this game needs to holistically reach its potential. In my opinion, Destiny should start over, because its developmental history has been marred by missteps even before its official launch, which saw an original concept uprooted in interests of financial gain from CEOs Bungie doesn't even have to answer to anymore. I would love to see this game, instead of spitting out content to maintain some sort of relevance for the audience it has left, take its time to instead revitalize and recreate a world space that actually captures you like it did back in 2014. Because right now, that game is more likely to be seen as a chore than a unique and fun experience. And that is a travesty. Not a lot of jokes in this one, I just wanted to express myself. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. This has been a rant, and this has been ArchWizard CJ. I wish you all a good morrow, and I'm off for the time being.